So we're going to go ahead and move on into World War II. And this is a pretty big unit. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on each slide. You can always go back and look at in a little bit more detail uh, on the Prezi. But here I'm just trying to give you kind of an overview and show you a few different methods and different styles that governments were using to try and persuade people to be to join the cause and believe what the government wanted or needed the people to believe. So here we go. So we see that there are a lot of different types of things going on here. Mainly, we're going to just look at some posters, though, and look at them from a few different viewpoints. Okay, so here we see an Italian viewpoint of an American citizen. Uh, you see him as kind of looking like a mobster with the American flag kerchief and over the body of a dead boy. Um, Pretty gruesome, pretty vilifying. Russia, when we think of propaganda, a lot of us think of this era of propaganda poster from Russia. And you see, a lot of things trying to promote nationalism, patriotism, uh, the might of the Russian army, things like that. Fearlessly going into battle under the red flag of communism. Our cause is just, enemy will be crushed. Boom. I mean, that's super direct, right? The face of Hitlerism. Here he is as an ape, kind of a very buffoonish, trolly portrayal of him. With the gallows and the executioner's axe at his back. Under Lenin's banner, forward to victory. So Stalin drawing a link to Lenin, the guns firing, the troops, rushing forward, the tanks, everything about this, promotes the strength of the Russian army, of the Soviet army, and of the worthiness of their cause. Here we see direct links to famous Russian military figures. Surovov was in the 18th century a very skilled uh, general who had very notable wins against the Ottoman Empire and kind of stopped the Polish uprising and things like that. And he was really revered as a hero. Chapayev, looks like I'm missing a Y there. Please forgive that. Was kind of considered a hero of the Russian Civil War. And in this one, you can see them in red, kind of lording over the kind of their presence isn't forgotten, but their legacy is continued in the current Soviet army and against the Axis powers. So it's kind of, you know, pulling on the national identity and, trying to make links to their causes and how worthy they were and what comes from that. It would be kind of like us, invoking, George Washington or Douglas MacArthur or any of the famous um, military minds from the past. Now, some were a little bit um, less dramatic and a little bit less serious. So you here have, um, this very cartoonish, but um, bloody and obviously villainous Hitler marching away from death. You see the temperature dropping on the thermometer and the skeleton representing death lording over him as he steps onto the bayonets of Napoleon. This is all talking about, defeating Hitler in the Russian winter and using the cold against him and showing how the Russians thwarted Hitler's advances, which very few had been able to do up to that point. Then we have more social causes, don't talk. We're going to see this in, the Allied states, in Japan and Italy. Pretty much the idea that you don't know who's listening. Spies could be everywhere. So don't even talk about where someone is stationed or what they're, if you know anything, you don't speak about it publicly. Crush the fascist bastards and death to the German murderers. Look at that swastika with the tarantula legs. That's pretty awesome, right? Nazis, you know, grabbing at gunpoint the mother and child, or I'm sorry, not mother, that's a young man. Um, Harvest crops until the last grain, prevent food waste, rationing, send food to the troops. The Allies are with us. Here we have the Brits, the Russians, or the Soviets, and the Yanks crushing Hitler underfoot. A lot of the same imagery that we're seeing, throughout um, throughout propaganda's poster history. Now let's move on to German uh, propaganda. They had probably the most extensive and effective, really, propaganda regimes in history to that point, and they had split it into divisions. You see that you have administration and legal, mass rallies, public health, uh, targeting the youth, broadcasting, national and foreign press, films and film censorship, art, music, and theater, protection against counter propaganda, and all of these things, so that you really have all aspects of the German society and German culture under the footprint of the propaganda ministries to make sure that there is a consistent message throughout the German public message. So let's take a look at some of their stuff. Pretty typical from what we're seeing everywhere else: nationalism, demonizing Jews. You can see kind of a Jewish stereotype looking from behind the American, Soviet, and British flags. I mean, look at this. It is disgusting. Um, Here you have, comparing Judaism to lice, and you see the skull and the Star of David behind it. So even though you see a lot of the similar themes, um, you get a really huge anti-Semitic push with Nazi propaganda. Rich Jewish man, sinister looking through the curtains. Here we are comparing to lice and spreading typhus. Here we have Um, we see that the Soviet army is destroying the Christian cross with a torch in his hand, that you have the Nazis and their allies, and other European countries rising up against the Russians who want to destroy the way of life. And so you're drawing on, religious themes, trying to get that emotional reaction. German students fight for the Fuhrer. Now, doesn't he just look like a dandy person? Just has everything going his way. Well, that's what they want. The patriotic, intelligent German student. Warning people to turn off the lights at night to prevent night air raids. If the death is coming from above. See? And we'll stop right there and pick up with the next selection.